Hello, my dear friends. I hope everyone is well. Today is Lag BaOmer. We are in the middle of Sfiras Omer. I thought I would say something about Lag BaOmer and the Sfiras Omer. We know that Sfiras Omer is observed because there were 24,000 disciples of Rabbi Akiva. They perished from Pesach to Shavuos. Why did they die? Everybody knows, because they didn't treat each other with honor. There's a common misconception. People think that means that they were disrespectful, and they treated each other, they were abusive, they embarrassed each other. That is not the proper, that's not what it says. That's not the proper explanation, because then it would have said, they embarrassed each other, or they denigrated each other. It says, that means the absence of kavod. They didn't show kavod to each other. We know what kavod is. Kavod is if a person is a guest of honor, so you want the person to feel that he's really being honored. So you have 5 speakers talk about him, and each one says extols his or her virtues. That's kavod. You have the video of them and everything. You have 1,000 people at the dinner. That's kavod. So lo nogu kavod doesn't mean that they put them down. It means that they didn't treat them like guests of honor. Why do they have to treat them like guests of honor? Because that's what the Torah expects, that when you relate to another human being, treat the person with kavod. To the extent that because they did not do so, they all died. It seems rather extreme. What an enormous tragedy. 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died. I'm thinking about the enormous tragedy of 45 people that perished in Meron yesterday. What a horrible tragedy. So many lives and many young people. Imagine how many families now are sitting Shiva, their lives been turned upside down. Our hearts go out to our brethren in Eretz Yisrael. But that was 45. Multiply that over and over again. 24,000 Talmidim died, and the ripple effect. It wasn't just that they passed away, but on their spouses and their children who became orphans and widows, and parents who lost their children. What a unbelievable tragedy and punishment. Why? Because because they did it. They said anything negative. They weren't harsh. They didn't treat each other like they're the guests of honor at a dinner. So that's a tremendous lesson for us if we're observing the Sfira. A lot of times, you get caught up in the minutiae, which is very important. Halacha is full of details, but you have to remember what it's all about. What is it about? It's about reminding ourselves the importance of treating people with kavod. That means that it's not enough not to be negative. It's not enough not to hurt people. We have to treat people like they're guests of honors at a dinner. So I was looking for a good story to illustrate this, because a good story is like a picture, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I was trying to find a story that would be appropriate. So I realized best story is the story in Chumash of Avram Avinu. How did Avram Avinu treat his guests? So the Chumash in Parshas Vayera says that Avram was sitting outside. It was a very hot day. Why was it so hot? Because he had just had a bris milah when he was 99 years old. And it was the 3rd day after the bris milah, and God didn't want Avram to be bothered by guests. God didn't want him to be bothered by guests. So God arranged that it should be super hot so that Avram would stay indoors. Well, Avram, though, is undeterred. He has to have guests. So he's sitting outside in the hot of the day, and he sees these 3, he sees these 3 men, and who are they? He has no idea who they are. They're the John Does. Rashi says they were idol worshippers because they had dust on their feet, and Aram told them they have to wash off the dust. That Rashi says because they used to worship the dust. So here he didn't realize that they were actually angels. So here Aram sees these 3 people, the nomads, wandering in the desert, walking around. I don't know if they were nomads, but these 3 guys walking by, and nobody that he knew. He's sick, he's ill, and it's a scorching day. So what does Avram do? He invites them into his tent. Does he just invite them? No. The Chumash uses the word vayaretz and vayimaher repeatedly. He ran, and he quickly. Vayaretz l'krasim. He ran to greet them. And he said, if I find favor in your eyes, please don't go by. Don't not come into my tent. He says, I'll bring you food. I'll bring you bread. Because for this reason you pass by my tent. So Rashi says, what does it mean for this reason? So Rashi says, Sha'avartem alai l'chvodi. You came here to honor me. Well, what does it mean they came to honor him? They didn't even know who Avram was, and Avram didn't even know them. Avram is saying, you are honoring me. How are they honoring him? Because they're honoring him with their presence. You're showing how important I am, that you're willing to come into my tent. I mean, everything is opposite here. Avram was honoring them, but he presents it that you're honoring me. So Avram, first thing was Vayaretz. He ran to them. And then he said, and then the Chumash says, Vayimar Avram. Oh, well, sorry. He quickly went to Sarah. What is he rushing? Because he's got to go do it quickly. And then he tells Sarah, gives her instructions. Vayomer Mari, hurry up, run, quick, take the 3 sa'im of kemach and knead it and make cakes. What's the big rush? These are 3 nondescript people, unknown. Who are they? So, but no, Avram is running. And then the Bakar Ratz Avram. Avram ran to the cattle. And he took Vayikah ben Bakar Rach V'tov. And Rashi says that he took 3 calves because he wanted to feed them tongues. What does he have to feed them tongues? You're going to slaughter a whole cow in order to get 1 tongue. Well, he didn't have anything else. He could slaughter 1 cow and give them some other cut of meat, and he could have 1 cow for 3 people. Instead, he slaughtered 3 cows so that each one can have their own tongue. You see how he's bestowing them with so much kavod. And then he says, and then he told his servant, hurry up and serve them. And then when everything, the meal is finally ready, he himself served them. He's standing on top of them. He's like the waiter. The waiter stands behind you, ready at your beckoning call for whatever you need. Avram, he's the most prestigious person in the world at that time, and he's 99 years old, and he just had a bris milah, and he talks to God. He was a great person. And look how he's rushing and running, even in spite of his age and his illness. He's running. What does he have to run for? Now, don't think that this is unique to Avram. The same thing is in the story of Rivka. Rivka was a little girl, and Eliezer comes by, and he wants to have a test to see if she's the right person for Yitzchak. So he asks her if he could give her to drink. So and the test was to see if she'll offer to give the cattle to drink. So the Chumash says, he asked her to give me something to drink, and so it says, she says, she says, drink. She quickly gave him what to drink, and then she said, I'll draw for the cattle. She rushed to pour water into the trough so the cattle would have what to drink. But and then she ran to the well to draw more water for the cattle. There was 10 cattle, and we know that cattle drink an enormous amount of water, especially after they're traveling. She was running, rushing. What's the big rush? She's doing them a favor, and I would say I can't say she learned from the model of Avram because she didn't know Avram at that time. But this is the picture that the Chumash gives us of how you do chesed. It's not enough just to say, hey, would you like to come in? I'll give you a cup of coffee. No, that's not chesed. Chesed is to be mechabed a person to the extreme, unbelievable. And that was the Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva. They didn't learn this lesson from Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva said, love the neighbor like yourself. That's a tremendous principle in Torah. Kamocha means we ourselves, we all feel that we're deserving of kavod. We all would like people to honor us and show us respect. That's exactly how you have to treat other people, with the same measure of respect that you would want to be shown for yourself. I was going to say everybody wants to be a guest of honor at a dinner. Nobody wants to be a guest of honor, I know. But the end is when people enjoy kavod. That's human nature. So we have to treat other people also in the same way. We have to mechabed them in the same way. So this is, I think, on Lag BaOmer, which is the time when finally the epidemic stopped. Some say it stopped completely. Some say that it paused. But it's a time to think about What do we? And I suggested yesterday, I spoke, that maybe the reason why it stopped was because they had learned their lesson and they saw how many people had perished, and they realized how when people are gone, then you suddenly realize their importance. Achrim os kedoshim. After people die, then you realize that they're holy, and they are holy because everybody has sparks of kedusha. Everybody's at Tzelem Elokim. So maybe on Lag BaOmer they finally appreciated that the deficiency, that they weren't mechabed zeh, they didn't treat each other with kavod. So I think that this is something that we should implement in our lives immediately, not wait till tomorrow or next week. Treat people with kavod. And I have to tell you, I always tell stories from my father, Allah Shalom, because I learned an unbelievable amount from my father. My father was an Adam Gadol. My father, I remember as a child, whenever the doorbell would ring, my father would run to answer the door. And there were mishulachim used to come all day to my father. He would be in the middle of eating supper. He was about to put a spoon of soup into his mouth. The doorbell rang. Puts the spoon down. Runs to the door. And I remember I used to say, "Daddy, why do you have to run to the door? What's the rush?" Or if the phone would ring, he those days they didn't have cell phones, believe it or not. They had these little rotary phones that sat on the table. Why do you have to run to the phone? Why do you have to run to the door? Because that was, my father treated everybody with enormous respect. And he felt, I'm going to keep somebody waiting at the door. He didn't know who they were. They were total strangers. They were coming to him that he should do them a favor. But my father, like Avram Avinu, he felt, they're honoring me with their presence. How could I keep them waiting? And that's Avram's thinking and Rivka's thinking. If you keep a person waiting, that's a lack of kavod. I want to tell you another example of what it means to treat people with kavod. I read this in a biography about a Rabbi Steinberg, who was a principal of a girls' high school in Baltimore. And one of the things that struck me is that his policy was, and when he was talking on the phone when he was having a conversation with somebody in his office, if the phone would ring, he never would answer the phone. Why not? Because he says, lack of kavod. I'm talking to a human being. It's not bakavidik that while I'm talking to a person, I should go and answer. What if they answer the phone? And people do that all the time. They can't control themselves. They have to answer the phone, or they'll take the cell phone out of their pocket to see who it is. That's a lack of kavod. If you feel that the person's important, why is the person there not important? Why are you giving deference to a telephone? The person on the other end, if you don't answer the phone, he's not going to feel denigrated in any way. But if the person's sitting there and we're talking on the phone, that's insulting. So okay, there's an example not of being mechaber. There's an example of not abusing people, of not treating people disrespectfully. But the bottom line lesson here is that we have to. It's something that requires a focus. It's not enough just to say, okay, yeah, good idea. It's something that we have to do. We have to try to find ways to be mechabed people. And today on Lag BaOmer, this is the time to make the commitment. It's the epicenter of the Sfiras Omer, when 24,000 Talmidim died. Why? Not because they were disrespectful, or they were hurtful or harmful, they caused people pain. It was because they didn't treat each other like a guest of honor. And Avram and Rivka serve as terrific models of what it means to be mechabed people. Avram treated his guests like royalty, and Rivka treated her guests like royalty. Eliezer like a regal person. That's the lesson I think that we should take away from the Sfiras Omer and Lag BaOmer. I wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos.